get fired for? Story 1, we were told we get OT for night work. The new company manager let it slip that we don't actually get OT for night work. So when I was scheduled for 5 nights in a row working on a transmission line cell site, I mentioned that I expect everyone working from our company on site get OT. Once it was said that we won't get OT and that it wasn't an actual policy, was written in employee handbook, I forwarded the email chain to the entire company and leadership of Verizon. I was canned, but now everyone gets OT for night work. My life is better now anyway, and got my people what they deserve at it. Thank y'all for the support. Worth mentioning that it doesn't matter what our role is to make a difference for the folks around us. Even after the miserable events that followed this, suffering the reality I brought up on myself, it was very much worth it, even if only on a personal level. Don't hesitate to pull the trigger on some that get paid to ruin you, and be kind to the people who work with you. Story 2, the company's time clock software ran off of the computer's time. So when I was late, I would just close the software, change the time back to before shift start, and then clock in and change it back. Edit. The supervisor who showed me the trick fired me after I told him to stop being a and fire me. A day or two later, he saw me pulling in late, and when he went over the time info that day, it showed me clocked in on time. He knew why. Story 3, aggressively squeezing breakfast muffins, LOL. I was a few days into working at MCDS, and someone complained I gave them a muffin that was too hard. I baked them at like 3 a.m. and sit in a warmer all day. This was before they had the full bakery menu. I think muffins was the only thing baked, and maybe cookies. So my manager told me to squeeze them before I hand them out. Me being a dumb teenager, squeezed the out of these muffins and got another complaint. They stopped scheduling me, haha. Story 4, embezzled almost $500,000 from the doctor's office I worked at. Oh no, wait, that was my former supervisor who did that. 26 years after she fired me for taking home a leftover slice of pizza after a drug rep hosted a pizza party for the office staff. Karma can take a long time, but it always comes through. Story 5, the owner of our restaurant was smoking too much heroin and thought we were all stealing. We showed up to work that day to find he had changed the locks and put a now hiring sign up in the door. Story 6, this one's the worst. I don't know why. I thought everything was fine. I was there over 5 years, and one morning they offered me a month's pay and go, or B, get a lawyer if I wanted to know why, and take it from there. We didn't have money for a lawyer. Husband was still in college, so I walked away with a bit of cash. Bugs me to this day. Story 7, worked at a gas station and was a sucker for the free soda. I would drink a few 24 Oz glasses of Drive. Pepper don't judge per shift, and had to relatively frequently. I usually worked with the same lady every shift, and every shift my drawer came up short, even like 10 to 20 bucks. One day, my usual coworker was off, and I worked with another lady who warned me to watch my drawer around the other, and hers had been short when she was around. That got me to thinking. The next shift with the usual lady, I stuck some receipt paper into the lip of the bottom of my drawer and hit the bead. When I came back, the paper was on the floor. My drawer was short 20 at shift change, and my boss fired me. I told her of my findings and asked her to review the security tape. She told me to write off the other lady had been there years. I left heartbroken and rented some VHS tapes to indulge in and recover. One of the movies was Casino, and man, is that a good movie. Come to find out, the usual lady was the boss lattice cousin, and they told people I knew I got fired for stealing money. I thought about calling a lawyer, but also I was in high school, and it was delusional, I suppose. I got out of that town after high school, and rarely returned, especially considering all my family moved off. Story 8, HVAC. Me and my buddy were assigned to a paper plant. He did installs, I did service maintenance. Note, refrigerant is closely monitored by the EPA with savage repercussions for misusing it. So I would only use a couple pounds here, a couple there, just for topping off units. I meticulously recorded everything I used. My buddy was using 3 or 4 jugs at a time, 25-pound a jug, because he was installing brand new units, and he never recorded what he used. Yikes, my bosses decided to fire me because I wasn't recording my refrigerant usage. I threw my pocket notebook on the desk. It's all right there, everything I used. Their eyes bugged a little because they knew they got caught lying. The difference between the other guy and me, I wasn't related to anyone high up in the company like my buddy. Truth be known, the company is going down, and they're letting tons of people go. They made up lies to fire me. I don't hold it against my buddy. He didn't fire me. Story 9, I took 2 days off to put down and grieve my family dog who was 16 years old. I came back on Monday, and they said they no longer trusted me despite opening and closing the shop for 6 months. Story 10, I got fired, but then luckily rehired thanks to my union, because my manager confronted a shoplifter 4 times her size and the guy started to beat her. I, along with other coworkers, intervened, pinning him to the ground until cops arrived. The next day, store reps came and told me I shouldn't have intervened and let me go. LOL. Story 11, I was fired after a month into my first job at a local pizza joint when I was 16. They called me during the Super Bowl and said I had to come in. I told them I was out of state without a car, so no way I could make it. They said I should have known this was one of the busiest days of the year, and I should have stayed in the area. I came in to work my next shift, and they just gave me my paycheck and said they had to let me go for not being a team player. 10 years later, I was fired from a job in tech because I refused to move out of state. This one hurt a lot more. Story 12, 1970, yes, Close to the Edge tour. I had my tickets and had the request approved for time off. They changed their mind at the last minute and would not let me off, but left anyways, and was genuinely surprised when I got back on Monday, and they informed me that I was fired. Story 13, went on a company business trip and accidentally found out my two immediate managers were having an affair. I didn't give two shits, never said a word, but should have reported to HR as the global manager male an affair, then did his best to get me fired, including making up lies about me stealing time, which I was able to prove was lies. Thank you email and phone records, except for 1 hour of the stolen time. The female in affair tried to give me warnings and let me know I needed to get help. I went on early maternity leave, and both of them were fired within 2 weeks. Because of this, came back from maternity leave to a very hostile work environment, despite the affair and the firings having nothing to do with me. Was back for a month, and they ended up firing me as it wasn't working out despite stellar reviews from those I work with and my clients. Story 14, I worked at Sears. I just walked in for my shift, and the store manager asked why the department was a mess. How the shit I know? I just walked in. Yep, well that leads to an exchange of words on the sales floor. I probably shouldn't have said go choke on a glittery. Just a little backstory. The store manager was a lesbian, as am I, and she automatically thought that meant we were buddies. Still to this day, I flip her off when I see her driving. Lisa, I worked for Hobby Lobby as a manager in my mid-20s. I was fired when they found out I was gay. They said it didn't fit with their family values. Reason 974,356 to hate Hobby Lobby. Story 15, yes, my first summer job during high school. Got my manager's daughter arrested for assaulting a customer. She didn't work there, but slapping a woman in a wheelchair for taking up too much space was not something I could let slide. Story 16, long story short. I worked in a nursing home for rich people for 2 months. This old man is a perv and his grabby hands. He molests pretty much all the young orderlies when they do his morning hygiene. A girl was crying because he grabbed her and tried to get her. He also used racist insults when she left. This was not the first occurrence, but I was new, and it was the first time I heard about it. The orderly's supervisor wanted to force the girl to go back to this man's room, and she refused. They were fighting about it. I was the nurse in charge at the moment, so I told them to send one of the guys instead. I got told basically that the resident was rich, so he could do whatever. I was appalled and furious. I wrote an email to the manager telling her about this abuse and how it was unacceptable that his behavior was normalized by the supervisors, how we should be protecting our staff and provide a safe environment to work in. Essay is essay. Got fired the next day, somehow. Story 17, fired once from a night auditor position at a hotel because the swing shift lady decided she wanted my job. After 4 months of working straight, owners refused to hire another person that wasn't family. I finally was able to take 2 days off. When I woke up the first day, there was a message on my answering machine saying that I was fired because the audit was completely screwed up and the swing shifter had to spend 4 hours fixing it. I was OCD about the audit, so I knew it was BS. I asked them to check the audit sheets to see if my initials were on the back bottom corner. They said no, so I knew right then I was set up and told them so. Doesn't matter though, still fired. Found out 6 months later that the swing shifter not only got my position, but was fired for stealing almost 10 grand from them. Karma people, karma. Story 18, new operator forgot a piece of his equipment when he left. I had to make a run out to where he was with what he needed. Foreman told me to drive home the point he needed to check his equipment before he left the yard. I did. 2 weeks later, they fired the foreman and introduced the new guy. Of course, it was the operator I chewed out for not checking his equipment. Want to guess who the first person he fired was? Story 19, after months of being told I was useless and too slow to do the job, I had a massive panic attack, and my mom made me call in sick. I got fired. Best thing to ever happen. Story 20, got ridiculously drunk at an industry conference out of town in Boston. Ended up sleeping with the wife of a senior-level exec who worked for a vendor of ours. That was on Thursday night of a 3-night stay. Friday night, the exec found out and confronted me in front of my boss. Let go almost on the spot. We were walking to the elevators when he said it was a really good idea if I found a new place to work. Room was paid for through Sunday, so I stayed in Boston, just kept away from the hotel bar and conference center, bar hopped, and took in a Boston College football game. Sat night, exec's wife shows up in my room very late. Very drunk, we again took me 5 months and a change in industry to find a comparable gig and shed that experience. This was about 15 years ago. Nothing similar has happened since LOL. Story 21. New COO comes, fires me for difference of opinions. New COO leaves after 3 months. I'm rehired for a superior role a year and a half later. Am fired for difference of opinions about management style with my direct manager and new COO. 4 months later, the COO switched roles to another department, and my ex-direct manager is on the way out. Hey race me waiting to get rehired, and then fired for the 3rd time from the same company. Story 22. I worked in AP for several months and had the ability to issue payments. There were some payments that weren't accepted by the client, and I was tasked with researching why. I discovered the problems and sent it over to the team responsible for updating contact and payment information. Segregation of duties required that I couldn't change where the money went because I was the one effectively writing the check. The team responsible did nothing with me, sending weekly emails asking for updates. I went to my manager and the manager above her with documentation requesting the changes. After 4 months, they were asking me for a timeline when the outstanding payments would be taken care of, and I told them that I needed them to tell to the other team to get the payment information fixed or nothing could move forward. I was told that would be addressed. Fast forward a month. Nothing was fixed. I was asked again for an update. I told them I was beyond frustrated with the situation because nothing was getting done and that I had no faith that my managers would actually do their job and that I was tired of the incompetence. Let's just say that they didn't like that. Story 23. I worked for a small English language school with 2 teachers. The other teacher said something very worrying and slightly predatory, and I told our supervisor. The supervisor got angry at me because the students liked the other teacher, and a month later when it came time to extend my contract, I was told I would not be rehired. The other teacher received a €100 bonus. Story 24. Depression. It was full-time at an auto parts store. I had to stop in a school because the depression was too much. I would try to go to work, but was often late or would call in. The regional manager told my store manager I had to be let go because I wasn't reliable. He wasn't wrong. My boss was crying as he did it. He knew I needed help and wanted to be the last thing I could hold on to. I ended up getting help and doing much better. That was about 16 to 17 years ago. I still have moments that kick but I can work around it better. Also, super rare. Story 25. Worked as a QA tester for an online game company. Found bug while on my personal account at home. Came in the next day and reported the bug. I was very clear I found the bug while playing at home on my personal account. It was a nasty bug that let you duplicate very expensive items. A few weeks later, someone in customer service was checking the logs for people exploiting the bug. They found mine, and the company decided to fire me on my birthday. That was around 15 years ago, but it still upsets me every year on my birthday. Story 26. Going to see my family after my grandmother died. I found out on a smoke break via phone call. I went inside and brought the mail to my supervisor, choking back tears, and she urged me to go. I didn't want to leave work, but she said it would be okay. I got fired a week later for leaving in the middle of my shift with no notice and using my phone during business hours, according to the owner of the business. If you ever want to know where not to buy Harley-Davidson motorcycles and apparel in SC, I'm your girl. Story 27. Not fired, but almost fired for eating all the chocolate inventory. Apparently, I was caught on camera opening the boxes in the back and snacking on the food multiple times. Hoopsie. Story 28. I worked at a gas bar for my first job, and the new manager had it out for me because I wouldn't put up with her bullshit. She was in way over her head and put into a managerial position due to nepotism. Wrote me up over very, very minor things that other employees wouldn't even get a talking to over. Accused me of stealing from the till because my float was out a few dollars. Accused me of giving discounts to friends and family, and tried to blame me for over-ordering that week's fuel delivery and causing an overflow of gas in the lot, even though that was like the sole thing the manager was responsible for doing. I was told my next write-up would result in my termination, and after realizing the company and our union didn't have my back at all despite me being the longest tenure employee at the time and several of my coworkers coming to my defense, I decided to hand in my uniform without notice the day before she was supposed to leave for a week-long climbing trip and left without saying a word. One of my coworkers said she was furious at me because we were so short-staffed that she had to cancel her trip to cover my scheduled shifts. So that made me feel a lot better. If you're reading this, Jody, I hope for your current employee's sake that you're not such a huge to work under anymore. Story 29. Worked at a children's theater. Ended up dating a coworker. We kept completely professional at work, but would see each other after hours. A parent saw us holding hands or something small and complained that we were setting a bad example for the kids. Story 30, I was fired from Lowe's for calling in sick after my sixth shift. Some stomach bug had been going around the store. I caught it and got pretty sick, called in, and was told if I was willing to call in before 2 weeks that I wasn't Lowe's material. Turns out I wasn't and made a pretty good life for myself without Lowe's. Story 31, not me, but one of my co-workers came in drunk and hungover and proceeded to have a 2-hour nap in the lunchroom, and then was shocked to find out he was getting fired. Story 32, I reported harassment and got fired. That place, giving away the secret recipe for scones, which was taped to the side of the refrigerator I in full view of customers. Story 33, took too many leaves as I was preparing for master's degree, and I couldn't disclose it to my boss, so I took holidays for random reasons. Basically was trying to settle my finances for fees. I got fired. Then after a month, I got admission to master's degree. Pursue a degree for next year. Landed in better paying job after. Story 34, updating my resume. Using company property, 100 worth it. That job sucked. This job made me call in sick for the first time ever because I hated it so much. Story 35, my brother tried self-harming himself at school. So I left work to go get him and speak with counselors to set up therapy. Had to miss the following day as well. Got fired for missing that second day. Story 36, I was the night manager at a hotel at the beginning of COVID. Our hotel shut down, but they needed to have at least one person on for every shift because of some tax or zoning law. They fired me, then kept the breakfast cook and moved her to overnights because she made $2 an hour less than me. 3 weeks later, they asked me to come back because she couldn't take it, LOL. Story 37, mopping wrong. After riding my bike to work every morning at 4 a.m. to make breakfast for 400 nursing home residents, then cleaning the kitchen, washing the dishes that came back, and putting everything away while keeping strict kosher Jewish nursing home, then ride my bike to high school for classes. I was kind of relieved. I was exhausted. Story 38, I was 16 and working in a supermarket in the early 1980s in NYC. I was fairly off the chain as a kid and would do random dumb. I had a thing for the A-Team as a kid and would imitate Mr. T as I went about my shift stocking shelves. The hammer finally dropped when I boisterously proclaimed, I pity the fool who has to build the gefilte fish in cap. Big props to Saul. He held out as long as he could. Story 39, I was a manager at a big retailer, and there was an employee that disliked me. He lied and said I call him the N-word, and the company made me write a statement in which I said I didn't say that, and never would. And they fired me. No interview, no investigation, nothing. $60K salary with benefits gone in seconds because someone lied and got their way. Story 40, company I work for put on a big concert with a famous country singer. I got really high with the one sales guy in the parking lot before the show. I thought I would be cool to go on stage during the show. I was absolutely tackled by security and kicked out and then fired. Bad day, bad choices. Story 41, because a 45-year-old white male me, 60-year-old black male who I rarely had interaction with, came to my computer after I had left work for the day and looked at my desktop picture and felt he was harassed. My lead, my immediate supervisor who only interacted with me when they had a difficult customer or a hard technical situation that needed an expert. He would come to me and have me call them to resolve the situation. Since he was relatively new, it only happened about 5 times. I never had any conversations with him beyond that. The picture I had as my desktop picture was pretty much this one, but mine was one I had taken while on vacation. This is from a restaurant in a Best Western hotel in Grand Junction, Utah, on one of the roads leading from the Grand Canyon. I had left on Friday after my shift. I came in on Monday, and they had me come to the training room where the department supervisor and the lead were there along with an HR person on their very first day. They fired me for harassment of this 45-year-old white male with no investigation or a chance for me to defend myself. In 50 years, the only time I have ever been fired. Story 42, complaining about the sociopath who kept trying to trap employees into making mistakes by lying to them. 2 summers in a row, I didn't understand this was my client, not my boss, because he was in charge of delegating work to me. I was a tech and too young to understand how the power dynamics between consultants and clients worked. First time I stood up for myself, second summer, I got fired. However, a week before I left for school for a summer, I wiped my sweaty all over his office phone, which he regularly pressed against his face. Story 43, which job? Oh well, I once got fired for injecting drugs in the bathroom. I was a car salesman at the moment. Circa late 1990s, they found me knotted out on the bathroom floor. Stay off the needle, kiddos. Story 44, not performing well at a job, where I was set up to fail and was taught nothing for something where I was told that I would have someone help progress to a near career level. Didn't help that new management came in and wanted their people instead of investing in someone who's been in the industry for 10 years. Piped out. Left me with major PTSD and still mentally dealing with it. Story 45 was 22M in my first job out of college. Working for a tyrannical CEO at a software startup where his underlings knew no better as no one had worked anywhere else. Workplace relationships very frowned upon, unless you get married to someone there, in which case you'll stay forever. Started crushing on the 22F in the cube next to me, and one Sunday we went to brunch, but there was a wait and no chairs to sit on while waiting, so I sit on the curb and she sits on my knees for 5 minutes. During that time, the 25F right hand of the CEO sees us, gasps audibly, and then walks off. Next day at work, tons of closed-door meetings, everyone looking at me weird. Shocker, I was fired at the end of the day where I was told, it's just not working out. I guess they decided my crush was the better worker, so I would be sacrificed for her to be more focused. She quit the next day. We were both unemployed for 4 months, but found great, healthy jobs to really kickstart our careers, started dating, and have been happily married for 10 years. The company asked each of us to come back multiple times. Story 46, I was working at a printing shop in Oxford Street. Back when I was a teen, I was really accident-prone. One day my job was to print and collate a film script, and the guy came to pick it up, so when I was coming up the stairs and tripped, and both the script and the copy went flying out of my hand, my boss wasn't too pleased. I was about 18. Story 47, one of my first jobs, I got fired because a coworker was stealing and they thought I was helping her. It was cashier at a fast food place. We had a safe under the counter to get change from. The safe was directly below my register. Owner always put girls at register closest to door, guys under the one with the safe. Well, the girl that usually worked opposite me would go to get quarters and pocket the 10 instead of putting it in the safe. Owner decided I had to be helping her since it was happening right in front of me. Truth is, I had no idea she was doing it. She was cute. It was a horny 16-year-old. I wasn't watching what she was doing with her hands. Story 48, I trusted the wrong people at work. One girl went to my supervisor for 4 months straight to complain about me, all while she was texting me how she was thankful for my friendship. She was repeatedly telling my supervisor how stupid I was at my job and how she had to keep helping me. That never happened, and I was fired for being incompetent. My supervisor never even told me there was an issue. Story 49, buckle up. This is a wild ride. So I worked in the health sector at a major trauma children's hospital. It was my dream job, and I worked directly with an entire medical team, answering to a head of department as my boss. I knew all the staff from the volunteers to the head of ER, and they knew me. It was the most wonderful place. It was a two-step journey to losing my dream job, neither of which were in my control. Step 1, my then husband and I had found out when I was younger that I had fertility issues. When I finally fell pregnant, everyone was overjoyed for me. Everything was perfect until I went into sudden premature labor at 23 weeks gestation. There was nothing that could be done, and my child was born and passed away in my arms 7 minutes after birth. A part of my soul left me that day. I took a leave of absence for the day. I gave birth in 2 not a typo, days after. Then I returned to work full-time. This got me an official warning from the head of department for not attending my shifts. Yes, this person was well aware of what had happened. The entire hospital was bringing me condolence gifts, flowers, food to take home, but not that Jack. Instead, I got officially written up first and final warning for lack of productivity and commitment during the 3 shifts ID missed. Step 2, the icing on the cake. Fast forward from losing my child about 5 months. I went home on a Friday night feeling a bit unwell. My next scheduled shift wasn't until the Monday, around midnight, 1 a.m. Saturday. So just in the start of my break, I woke up vomiting mucus uncontrollably. I was rushed to hospital where an x-ray showed I had double pneumonia, both lungs white out on x-ray. I was rushed into ICU, where I spent 7 days fighting for my life. Family called to come say their goodbyes. I was as sick as I could be. For those medically minded, my fever was 109 F42, 7C. My pulse was 240. I wasn't expected to make it. I had just confirmed ID fallen pregnant again about 3 days prior. And to give me the best chance at survival, they had no choice but to seek the consent of my family to terminate. I spent a total of 12 days in hospital. I had no memory of ICU, and my poor mother had to tell me I had lost my second pregnancy. After being discharged, I took a further 2 days at home to recover. I returned to work just 14 days from leaving that Friday night, 12 of which I was in hospital. ID lost a shocking 44 lbs 20 kg in those 12 days in hospital. To say I looked like ID been to and back was an understatement. Upon my return, I was let go by the head of department, a lead doctor in the hospital, for my unreliability and my blatant disregard of my previous formal warning to not skip my shifts. 2 things happened after I lost that job. I got a lawyer and I never went back to working in the health sector. It shattered my faith in humanity and the notion that there was compassion in medicine. It also wasted all of the hard work and training and study ID undertaken to get to my dream job. And all the bills, so many bills. A final note presenteeism. It's not worth it, folks. Recently, my position was just eliminated. Story 50. I spoke my opinion about some things that had recently been said by the owners. To be more clear, I spoke my opinion to my colleagues who were my friends, and unless the owners had listening devices, we were a satellite branch. Then I was unfortunately ratted out by one of the girls I worked with. Sucks because I did a lot for her. Helped her a lot. Made her feel welcomed when she joined. And the worst part, I told her if I ever say anything you don't like, just talk to me, and I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. First time it happens months later, and with nothing to do with her, she rats me out first chance. I got pushed out for not being the right race. Well, see how the discrimination suit goes. Doubt it will go anywhere, but oh well. Story 51. Working as the cashier at a hair salon. A new client pretended to have left their wallet in the car. Of course, they never returned. I had stopped the client from taking products out of the store, so the loss was only the stylist's time and supplies. However, I was fired by the owner for not physically restraining the client, or before getting something of value like their car keys. WDF. How do they get their wallet from their car without a key? And I would nod it to legal detention. Initially, I was told I had to pay the $800 bill. The stylist knew they were sketchy and did not take a deposit, as was normally done when a client asked for significant additional services during a session. I was glad to walk away. Story 52. I dodged a few almost self-inflicted wounds and never got fired. I did come close a couple times. My favorite was when the big boss made a suggestion and I laughed way too loudly while the rest of the table looked on in horror, but I put my head down and kept my mouth shut, and I was kind of good at my job. I'm retired now and hate the games you have to play when you work for layers upon layers of managers to owners' useless nephews. Story 53. After 7 years working there, I had just come off maternity leave, and they were looking for a reason, so my direct manager could give his cousin my job. The reason they gave was that I was pumping my milk for my newborn. Absolute scum. I had single-handedly expanded their sales from just 2 stores in my area to 9 carrying their product. They haven't been able to keep help since then. Story 54. Racing the airboats. Doing jumps, one jump went wrong, spun the boat, and it landed upside down in the mud. Thankfully, no one was killed, could not hide the minor injuries. I was the boss, I got canned. Story 55. GoDaddy wasn't showing the profits that they wanted in 2023. In the first quarter, they fired what was written in the email by the CEO of staff and recorded record profits. I survived. A few months later, they fired maybe another 2 based off department's numbers. I got hit along with some friends. We were all in the company rewards program for going above and beyond and exceeding expectations and all that. What makes this annoying is my department had seen a 300 increase in our workload in the last 6 months. Instead of keeping valuable employees, they put record profits as the priority. The entire year of 2022, several departments had made a case to raise base pay with HR. After review that took 10 months, they said that we were paid fairly. So while getting fired and severance was nice, it showed me that working for large companies sucks. I had worked for Blue Oast years before and had them shut down our office location, top selling and best performing with support. They built and moved to a new location in AZ, support small businesses wherever possible, look for places that prioritize people over profits. Story 56. I went on a trip across the country to bury my dad's father. Long story. Got fired despite giving adequate notice. Metro yawning while working in a fabric store. I was at high school and a customer complained when I yawned. She said I must not be enjoying my job enough. Story 57. Got fired for incompatible values. The real reason I'll never be able to prove in court, I share my salary with my entire team's 6 people. No idea if I was making more or less than any of them, but pay transparency is something I firmly believe in. Story 58. In office, I didn't cover up blatant health issues at a restaurant I worked at. My boss also forced a coworker to leave the kitchen an absolute mess the night before, and I came in and he expected me to clean the entire mess and set up for opening. I said how it was BS, and when they went down to 93, I got fired. Story 59. After 25 years on the job, LTC, I got fired for being insubordinate to the new narcissistic sociopath of a Don. That was on a Friday afternoon during the beginning of COVID lockdown, but I went to work on Monday morning, met with the CEO, and was told that the CEO gave the Don her 2-week notice, and I had my job. Everyone I worked with went to the CEO and had my back. Bye-bye, Don, director of nurses. Story 60. I found out the QC manager was having an affair with his subordinate. I brought it to the attention of HR, and they fired me instead. I sent my dirt to the husband and wife that were being cheated on and left the state. He lost his jiu-jitsu gym, got a divorce, and she took his dog. The subordinate got divorced just 1 year into their marriage, and the business failed 3 years later. They both hated me for no reason before I caught them. I don't regret a thing. Story 61. The married secretary. They fired her too, but gave her good references and went out of their way to blackball me. So the most I could get for years afterward was fast food jobs. I was unable to work on Saturday nights because church. I told them this during the interview, and they claimed they didn't realize it would be a permanent thing. LOL, they didn't technically fire me. They asked me to quit, haha.